Hey everyone, good morning. Today we're going to work on a lot of our basic stances, starting from straddle stances, shifting into forward stances, and back stances. And we're even going to review a little bit of cat stances, a little bit more advanced of the stance. So let's get right to it. Working from our straddle stance, we like to have our legs at least about 2 shoulder widths apart, almost as if we're going into a squat position. And we're going to try and face our feet as pointed forward as possible. If they're off a little bit on an angle, that's okay. Our back is nice and straight. So try and push the hips forward a bit as you sink down. You want to think that the upper body is almost sitting right on top of the hips. Perfect. Again. Great. Side. Excellent. Since we're going to be using the straddle stance into shifting into different areas, that's one that we'll start off on first with reviewing. So next is our forward stance. Picking a leg as we step forward in our stance, I'm going to face directly towards you just to show the width of my stance. We want to have our hips nice and square to our opponent, and we want to have our knee right over our toe. If you notice, both of my feet are pointed in the same direction. This is a little bit harder to do, especially if your flexibility in your back foot is not quite there. It'll come. Good. Remember, leaning over, knee over the front toes. Gives us lots of power and we're really planted. Stepping out, you'll notice my stance is about the width of my hips, maybe a little bit more. If we're stepping out too much like so, we leave ourselves open for attack. So, nice and square and leaning over towards that front knee. Good. So that's our forward stances. Remember that back leg too is locked. Try not to raise the back heel. Plant that heel right on the ground and lean forward. You'll obviously work as you progress into deeper stances, but right now work on the mechanics of getting your hips nice and square, your knee position over to toe, your feet in the same direction, and the back leg is locked. Excellent. From there, we're going to go into back stances. Back stance is sort of similar to our straddle stances, except we're going to be leaning in one direction. So if I start from a straddle, I'm going to lean back, position my front foot towards my opponent, and I'm leaning with my knee right over my toes, just like a forward stance, except now we're going back. And shifting. Again. Good. You'll notice my lead knee here has a slight bend in it. Let's try and avoid locking it. That'll allow us to move and transition a lot better and safer. Less chance of injury. And my knee here is right over the toes as best as possible. Leaning back. You may not be able to see my feet from here, but look at the back. We are nice and straight. Try and avoid leaning over. Once again, just like in the straddle stance, we're sitting right down on top of the hips. Excellent. Now the cat stance. The cat stance is a little bit more of an advanced stance. It's basically a higher version of your back stances. This foot, my supporting foot, which is the back leg, is off on a little bit of almost a 45. Sometimes you'll see it at a 90-degree angle. A 45 to me is better. Then I can advance in that direction faster. I've raised up this foot here, and I have about 80% of my weight on the back, 20% on the front. Good. As we step out, we draw a little half circle just to protect the groin. And again, my knee is over my toes. I'm putting a lot of weight on the back. And this foot is nice and light. Almost like we're throwing a front kick to the floor. That foot, if you brought it up, would be in a perfect front kick position. This is great so we can transition to snapping the kick out. Excellent. Perfect. So let's do a drill from transitioning from one stance to the next. We start with our straddle stance. Perfect. Let's shift over into a forward stance. That's a right forward stance for you. Back, other side. Check your stances again. Make sure everything's nice and straight. Back to center. Good. Now we're going to lean back. Left back stance for you, right for me. Point that lead foot. That foot there is in a nice line with my back heel. My knee is over the toes. Nice straight back. Back to straddle. And lean back again, other side. And up. Good. Stepping out with a back stance towards you, just to get the orientation of how straight the back is. Remember, try not to lean forward. Nice neutral position. If I step out here, you're my opponent, I'm now very exposed. So that's why we like to keep the feet and the heels in the same line. There's very little target here, especially if our guard is up. Excellent. Let's do a nice little quick drill for you guys to work on at home. So, straddle stance, shift, forward stance. Back to straddle, forward stance. Straddle, back stance. Straddle, back stance. And back. Excellent. Work through those. Do them a few times over and over again. You guys are going to find that your transitioning from one stance to the next is going to come very quick. So now, here's another one for a little bit more advanced, and we'll add some cat stances into it. Straddle, forward stance. My back leg comes up. Now I'm in a cat stance. Back to straddle. Shift, forward stance. Step up. Cat stance. And back. Work on that, and then we can add some variations. Excellent. Try this at home, guys. Work on your balance, your technique, and your strength. While we can't be out training together, hopefully we can follow along and get some improvement at home.